What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We are coming at you on the second day of October. Favorite month, I think, of the year.
Favorite month. I turned 28 years old in 6 days, which is absolutely fucking insane to say.
So crazy, yeah. You're old.
Getting older, 28 years old. But it was funny because I was literally just watching a piece of content. Some dude who's like a sales coach, follow him on social media. He's like in his late 40s. Yeah, somebody like, hey, how old are you? And the guy's like, oh, like, or like, he's like, I'm kind of old. I'm like 34. And the guy's like, dude, you're not old. Like, you're young. Like, but when you think about it now, he's like, I mean, we know people nowadays that are living to 100, right? And we're 2 to 3 generations behind those people.
It's so crazy.
So it's like with more knowledge on food sources, more knowledge on what we can do to better our bodies, better our minds, stay healthier longer. And even like in the next 20 years, what else will be out there from a health perspective to preserve your ability to live longer. So like even as we get into, or as I get into my 30s and 40s, like that'll still relatively be young because who knows, could live to be like 115 or 20 years old.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to pull the plugs on you.
Yeah, which means literally you got 90 more years of running around, using my mind. And as long as like we keep moving our bodies and eating right, it's like we'll be moving decently, even as we are approaching 100 plus years old, which is cool.
But in the same token, death doesn't discriminate. So sometimes life can be extra short.
It can be.
I also heard something on a podcast that was like, we think that we have all this time, but for some people, this is their last day. And it sounds very morbid. But I think it's something to consider as you're going through life because we think we have all this time. I think some people continue to push off things. Oh, next year I'll do it, or I'll do it when I'm this age. But it's like, well, it's not really promised. So go do the thing now. As much as it's really cool to think that we probably still have, and I would hope we still have a lot of life to live.
We do.
Go live your life now. There's nothing to wait on to live your life. We've been living life.
We've been living.
It's been good.
Yeah.
It's been good for us, and we're just excited for what's to come. We got our book coming out. Holy hell.
Which is so exciting. More news on that to come. We have it ready. We are in the final stages. The book has been completed. It's in the final edits. I think we've already told you guys that, but we're just kind of finding the best time to launch it, given schedules, when we're not traveling, when makes the most sense for us. So the tentative date is 25th of October, but we might even push that to like the second week in November. Right within that pocket of time, you will have a book that you will be able to purchase from Amazon or Barnes and Noble from yours truly. And it's going to be some exciting stuff. Yeah, literally, how did we get here? I don't know anybody that's my age. Well, obviously there are people publishing books my age all over the world, but anybody that I know personally that has published a book that I've come up with or been at the same level with in business, and people have done amazing things in their own directions, but it's cool that we're doing something in our own direction with writing a book here on all of our process and all the information, all the things that we found that have worked over the past years of us coaching individually.
And what's crazy, just to like cap this off, and then we'll get into our topic today, but what's crazy is that when we first met, like a couple months after, we went to this tarot card reading and the lady said, why aren't you writing more? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Like, this lady knows nothing about me. She's just pulling something out of her arse. But it's interesting to see that now. And who knows, that could have been
just weird.
A silly coincidence, but I'm going to take it as maybe it was fairly accurate because you did say some stuff where I was like, interesting. How did you know that?
Interesting.
We got a different topic for you guys today outside of our life updates. And that topic is talking about why your diet is not working, or why you feel like you're doing all the right things, but when you went to go attempt fat loss, you just didn't see the results that you were hoping or looking for.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. It's basically like our bread and butter of what we step in and help with.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things, like if you just go search online how to lose weight, you probably get Weight Watchers, Noom, like all these like big companies, like like whatever it may be, right? You're gonna get a lot of stuff that's gonna pop up on your Google search.
Yeah.
And a lot of these solutions will tell you to consistently do the same things you've been doing over and over. And that is eating less amounts of food and trying to do more cardio, trying to train more, and just restricting yourself, right? And I think that's the big common theme around everything. But for most people, when we try to lose fat, right, it's a restrictive process, right? Whether it's a sustainable one or not, like you're bringing calories lower than what you're typically used to eating. So you're restricting yourself.
Yeah.
But problem is, when we do that for extended periods of time, we're talking if you do that for a year, 5 years, decades, some people it's like 2 to 3 decades where they've been on and off with this, you run into a lot of implications.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I never really understood that concept because I was always told, like, if you want to lose weight, just start eating less. And it's true. Like the core of it, you do have to eat less than you're burning a day in order to lose body fat. But it's one of our coaches actually just came up with this analogy to help to explain it to her client. Think of your body as this machine, right? And over time, through diets and stress and the crappy foods that we're putting into our body and all this other stuff is kind of creating all this gunk and this machine, like this gunk that can make the machine a lot less efficient, right? Mm-hmm. And think of it as your metabolism, right? There's so many things that can influence our metabolism, and specifically years of yo-yo dieting and crash diets and never really properly nurturing your body, and just restriction specifically is one of the worst things that we can do. Where you're doing tons of HIIT cardio and just cardio in general, you're not prioritizing weightlifting. So many things can really mess up our metabolism. Years of hormonal birth control, neglecting your gut health. So all this gunk builds up. And if you don't take a minute to clean out that gunk, it's just going to be bogged down by it. And it's not going to run as this really well-oiled machine. And for most of us, we don't really ever give our body that break intentionally, that true like cleanup that it needs. And if you don't do that, you're just going to be running on this like sluggish metabolism that fails to respond to low calories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that, and that's like the number one problem most people are running into, like we said, not removing this gunk, consistently adding to it, not even being really fully aware that it's there.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem too. It's like, I think if you knew that, you'd be like, oh, it makes sense. Right. But traditional wisdom is going to tell you time and time again, if you want to lose weight, you got to eat less. Right? You got to do more. You got to do more cardio. You got to keep moving. Right? You ask your neighbor who lost 30 pounds this summer, what are they going to tell you? 1,000 calories. I skipped lunch. I ran myself to death. Right? So it's not common information what we're about to tell to you guys and like what you need to do. And even when we do tell you, you're still going to be skeptical because you're going to be like, well, why? How does that make sense? How is that going to help me get any closer to my goal? But we're going to do a good job of explaining that to y'all as well.
Yeah. And I think just to note too, before we move any further, like this isn't every single case, but we're talking to specifically mainly women. Guys, just eat less, move more, and typically you're going to respond very well. But for women, like we have to be a little bit more cautious of how we approach things because, we're meant to like bear children. We're not meant to put our bodies under all this stress. And obviously we work much more in the professional world nowadays than we did way back when, and guys were out, they were laborious and they were providing the income for the house, right? And now women are working just as much for just as long while also putting their bodies under an immense amount of stress to try and keep up with this image on the outside that we see all over social media and in magazines and on TV. And so then there's that psychological stress on top of that. So we find ourselves, we're doing more exercise, we're working out harder, and we're more inflamed than we've ever been. So we're speaking to those of you who find yourselves in that scenario where, perhaps you've done a lot of dieting on and off. You feel like you can't get the weight off no matter how hard you try. You're not eating a whole lot of food. We're talking to you. It's interesting actually, because even though I know this, I was going through a period where I was trying to lose weight for a music festival recently. And, I've gone through periods where we'll have like travel and stuff. And I'm like, I just want to tighten up a little bit. And Mason knows this to be true. Every single time I try to like tighten up a little bit, it's rarely been doing it after I know I've been eating 2,000 plus calories. Like usually when I go to tighten up a little bit, I haven't been tracking consistently, but I've already been kind of eating lower calorie, like 1,800 maybe. And then when I try and tighten up, I'm like super drastic with it. And my body does not respond well. Like I get bloated, my digestion slows down a lot. My hunger just completely like goes away almost. And I just like the weight goes up, literally. I get inflamed every single time. But it's because I don't properly take the time prior to going into the diet to eat enough food, to give my body enough rest. So it's kind of just like a little bit of restriction into more restriction. And a woman you're not supposed to be under that kind of chronic stress for so long. We did the flush.
We did.
And the flush, we won't get into it, but it's a 2-week process. And a big part of it is meant to like boost your metabolism. Essentially, it sounds like a gimmick, but it's not. But it really does help with that. And I literally went from eating probably averaging around like 150 to 180 carbs and like maybe 16 to 1700 calories there for a bit, and doing 4 sessions of cardio, 4 sessions to 5 sessions of training, to literally eating 280 carbs, eating almost double, doing a lot less. Like we stopped training for 2 weeks and it's been effortless. Like weight loss has been effortless. I'm just like slowly dropping weight and inflammation.
Yep. And it's like, but like the food sources, I would say were just so quality.
So quality.
So granted, we were eating a lot more food, but like, even though we were eating a lot more food, everything was easily digestible, just like good, low inflammation, low inflammatory foods. So, nothing was kind of messing with our gut. Like everything was just clean.
Yeah.
And like realistically, like sticking to that type of eating all the time is very difficult. That's why, some of these phases that we go through are very, in and out. But it just goes to show, like when you give your body the right things and you take away stress and, you really focus on healing it, it starts to work with you.
Yeah.
Crazy how that works. Crazy how when we do the right things, we put in the right work, we give our body what it needs, we see the right results. But for years and years and years, right, we find ourselves kind of doing the opposite, right? We think we're doing the right things. We think just having a lunch with salad and a little bit of chicken and a fat-free dressing is going to save us. But then we go home and we go nuts because we've been starving all day. So that's what we're trying to avoid here. And I think that's a good segue for us to get into kind of what this process looks like before you start to restrict and lose fat again this time.
Yeah. So we have something called like a am I ready to diet checklist, essentially. And that checklist is something that we kind of take a look at with clients prior to putting them in an intentional fat loss phase. Because, most of the people that we work with, most of the women, they come to us and they want to lose body fat, but they also, most of them kind of also understand that there's some cleanup that needs to be done, right? Both within their diet and their habits, but also hormonally, gut health wise, metabolism wise. And so for most of them, we can't just you could get into a dieting phase, but it's just not going to be the best course of action. For a lot of them, what we want to do is like the diet before the diet. And what we mean by that is getting metabolism into a healthy spot again by actually eating more food strategically over time through something called a reverse diet, if you've heard of that. And this also allows our body to kind of get out of fight or flight mode, because under eating is basically telling your body like, hey, I'm low on resources, on energy. And so what happens is your metabolism becomes super efficient at using the calories that you are giving it. So if you're only giving it 1,200 calories, well, over 2 months at 1,200 calories, your body's going to become efficient with those 1,200 calories, right? And the same thing happens if we start to slowly eat more food. Our body can become efficient now at the 2,400 calories. So now we can start to actually burn more calories throughout the day. So it's not like you're just, eating an absurd amount of food. It's like your body's actually burning more calories throughout the day.
And just think about that. Like if you're listening to this, watching this, how cool would it be for you to be eating probably double than what you are now, where you're struggling to lose weight, but maybe having a better body composition, more flexibility, more food freedom? Like how much different would your life be?
Yeah.
I mean, I know from just like even a baseline standpoint, if you have 1,000 more calories rotating in your body on a daily basis, you probably have more energy. You probably feel a little bit more full of life, and you're not as cranky around family, friends, coworkers. You're not as snappy when something goes wrong, right? Because you actually feel good throughout the day, which also is probably going to help out other symptoms you could be facing internally, because you're giving your body fuel to actually start to use so it can heal things, whether that's internal health, hormones, so on and so forth, without getting too far into the weeds. But things would just be different for you, right? Because you wouldn't feel like you need to be so restricted all the time. And for once, maybe ever in your entire fat loss journey, your basically your fat loss journey lifespan, you're not restricting yourself to unthinkable levels just to try to get your body in a good spot.
Yeah. And like not restricting it for extended periods of time. I think that's like the big kicker, because at some point, like you're going to have to bring calories lower. You're going to have to eat less food, and it's going to, you're likely going to be hungry. Like that's a very normal part of the dieting process. But to stay at the extremely low calories is where most people find themselves, because you're afraid to eat more food. And like, I don't want to gain weight, so I don't want to eat more food. But it's also because, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be yet. So it's like, well, that I'm just going to stay at the low calories because I don't know what else to do. So it's not necessarily that like dieting or bringing your calories lower is the root of all evil.
Right.
It's when you stay chronically at low calories and you chronically undereat, especially as a female, where it can be a little bit more detrimental to your metabolism, to your hormone health, to your gut health. Because again, it's perceived as like this threat of not getting enough food or fuel. Like think about like caveman days. If we were only given half of a mammal to eat, I don't know what animal we were eating back then, but if we were only given such a limited amount of food, like that's why we have that in place. Like it is such a survival mechanism that we should be grateful for. But nowadays there's not really a scarcity with food. We just create that scarcity ourselves. But our body doesn't know that. Like our body doesn't know that we have these unlimited resources of calories. So it's going to do what it's always done to protect us. And it's going to try and, again, become efficient with those calories. So it's not that you should never diet. It's that if you're trying to diet right now and you're not seeing good results, it's probably because you haven't taken the proper steps to eat enough food and actually get your metabolism up to a good spot, which in turn will upregulate hormones. It will help with your gut and your digestion. And when you can digest your food at a faster rate, you can handle more food. So think about it as like, again, just this machine, and each part needs to function on its own in order to have the whole machine function well. And if you are chronically dieting, under eating, over exercising, and you never take intentional breaks away, there's going to be a lot of buildup of gunk that needs to be cleaned out.
100%. So once we can get that gunk gone, once you actually undergo this process where, we like to call just the diet before the diet, right? Where you're truly starting to honor your body. You're truly starting to understand what it like looks like, what it feels like to actually just like eat and fuel, right? And when we're eating, we're fueling alongside that. We're not going to cover all this, but you're obviously going to be training. You're going to have daily habits, walking enough, drinking enough water, sleeping, mitigating your stress, all that good stuff. But as soon as you can actually start to approach, your fitness journey in a different way for the first time, like you actually start to learn the strategies that you need to have to like create a sustainable lifestyle out of this, right? So you understand how to eat. What do portion sizes look like that are representative to actually be beneficial for your body, right? How much of protein, carbs, and fats I should be eating? What does that look like on a plate, right? Because long term, like the goal for anything is to not be like, feel like you need to be super restrictive, counting numbers down to the gram. Like that's going to be a part of your journey at some point in time if you're truly serious about getting your goals. But I can say this confidently, Audrey's different because she just likes to, she's more type A. She likes to see the data, look at the numbers, follow it. And that's cool. I'm like that at times, but for me, like I haven't tracked macros, Monday through Sunday for multiple months on end and probably 2.5, 3 years. But I will track when I need to, when I make adjustments, but then I just know it's in my head because I've done it so many times. And once you get to the point, after we're kind of on a tangent here, but I just want to drive this home with y'all. Once you kind of get to this point, after you kind of go through one of these diets before the diet phases, you learn a lot of that and you learn a lot of tactical skills and you're going to feel better. You're building muscle and you kind of know what it looks like to actually be able to eat more food and not feel like the world's ending and you're going to gain 30 pounds in the process.
Yeah.
Which I think is so beneficial because even if you did lose weight, even if you did lose, let's say 50 pounds and you ate 1,200 calories, you're probably gonna be fucking terrified to eat a gram above 1,200 because you're afraid you're going to lose it all.
Yeah.
And by actually doing this, it puts you in, it completely shifts your perspective because then like, damn, I can eat food. I can improve my body composition. I can get strong. I can build muscle in the places I want to. But I know by doing this the right way and by really kind of seeing it for myself, I can believe that I'm not going to gain all this weight back, when I do bring calories lower and I want to bring them back up again.
Yeah, I can literally tell you guys the number one thing out of however long we have been coaching and, in my own fitness journey now for, I've been working out for like 9 years or so. The one takeaway was that I feel like the reason why most people never truly see a lot of progress, women specifically, and why I was always kind of like spinning my wheels and never fully getting to where I wanted to be is because I wasn't comfortable with the idea of eating more food, like not just, a couple hundred calories extra on the weekend or here and there for 2 weeks, but like consistently and intentionally eating 2,000 plus calories every single day and not being afraid of that. And when I started to do that, I started to build some muscle. I started to notice huge differences in my body composition. And we see the same with our clients. They finally get over that fear and they see it for themselves. So that's why we have a process in place that, starts with actually, we call it metabolic priming. It starts with them eating more food. You start to improve your relationship with food when you do this. Again, you start to see improvements internally and you get to the spot where now you can start a dieting phase stop and you won't see as much resistance.
Mhm.
It'll come off a lot easier. It'll feel a lot better in the process. You have some good habits in place. And then past that dieting phase, you want to get calories back up to a really healthy maintenance, sustainable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it's the route you have to go. It's really not an option for you. Like Audrey said, the person that we're trying to help here is a person who has dieted for multiple times and is at the lower amount of intake and just barely seeing smidgens of progress along the way.
Yeah.
Right. So if you did, come through us, like, do you know benefit for us to say, okay, well, you're struggling at 1,400 calories. Let's drop it to 900. Let's run you through the goddamn wall.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a good enough mindset and determination, maybe you can get there.
Yeah.
But then you're still at 900 calories and you're still terrified about what's going to happen when you start eating more food. Right. So it's not about if, it's a have to, because would you rather lose weight really quickly in 4 or 5 months, feeling absolutely miserable, even causing more issues to the internal health problems that you already have, whether that's hormone, gut health related, inflammation, whatever it may be terrified about how you're going to keep the results for the rest of your life, or maybe have it take 12 to 15 months, get the results that you're after, but have complete freedom, complete flexibility, and you're eating over 2,000 calories a day and you feel fucking amazing.
I'll take that.
I think we all can agree which one we want, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the payoff, 12 to 15 months to get exactly where you want to be, compared to the 5, 10, 15, one of our clients who's absolutely crushing right now, 50 pounds down, spent 30 years dieting on every single diet you can imagine. Granted, she probably didn't diet for 30 consecutive years, but on and off throughout that time frame, right? Would it be worth it if you can get there in 12 and a half, 12 to 15 and not have it be miserable or not be
months,
months,
right?
And not be completely terrified about how you're going to keep your results.
Yeah.
I think we all can agree upon that. And I think you owe it to yourself to do that too.
That you do. That's it, guys.
That's it, y'all. Well, thanks for tuning in. This was a fun podcast. We can go on for days about this just because we're so passionate about it. And we know just how much it does help people, women specifically, that are stuck in these positions, because it's not a fun place to be in, and it's a frustrating spot, and it's a difficult spot to not know what your next move's going to be.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you got something out of it, share this with somebody you know who you think could hear this message today, and we will catch you guys in the next podcast.
Peace out.